Hey, everybody, Brian Rundle, Black and White with Brian Rundle and Lana Quest. And it's just Brian Rundle tonight. So I wanted to get on here. There's just, so much to talk about, and I like to throw in just a little bit of extra content. So I'm going to record tonight and put this out there. But as of this recording, Joe Biden is over in Michigan right now giving comments, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of clips to watch to see how he does there. I did see a clip that I'll play here in a minute prior to him speaking, and it seems like the crowd is very excited. But of course, the talk now is, should Joe Biden stay in the race or should he leave? And that is going to be probably the topic for the next few weeks, at least, until it either gets through people's heads that Joe Biden is staying, or Joe Biden says, I'm not doing this anymore. And that's obviously going to be based on something that he said yesterday, that if he does have people come to him and say, you cannot win, he said that he would step aside. And I think in his head, when he was saying that, he was saying, in fact, he did right after that say, nobody is saying that I can't win. And, there are some things to back up what he's saying, but there's a lot of confusing news out there. So a lot of people are like, I don't know. Should he stay? Should he go? Do I want him to stay? Do I want him to leave? Because we all know just how important this election is. This election, I know it sounds tiresome, and I know we've been saying this over and over and over again. It's the most important election of our lifetime. This one, if you do believe that they will implement Project 2025, like I do believe, it is by far the most important election that we will ever have in our lifetimes. This is going to be the difference, whether or not we save America from this crazy plan that they have in place to implement for all Americans, whether you like it or not. And, so this is a big deal. And if they win the House, if they win the Senate and the presidency, it'll be, I think, even worse than people think. I'm not really sure that a lot of people understand the ramifications of what's coming. However, I do believe people are starting to understand it more and more, and that's something that we will get into. But like I said, first, we are going to start with President Joe Biden, and should he stay or should he go? So I think that I have made, and I don't think, I know I've made my opinion on this. And I will say one thing for sure. I'm really disappointed in the Democratic Party, and I'm disappointed in the way they're handling this. I am okay with anybody expressing concerns. I'm concerned, and most people who are not MAGA fascists and nutballs, they are concerned as well. And I get it. And I get expressing that concern. However, there seems to be a little bit too much over the top snark about Joe Biden or attitude towards him, instead of just sort of the, look, I love the guy. And some people have said this, but I do believe that it's possible that we need to look into that. Again, another thing I'm not a big fan of, I don't know if we need to make this public. And as public as we are making it, we are certainly seeing a lot of different people, including celebrities, making their opinions known. And, people have said, well, celebrity, what makes them any different? Well, it doesn't. But when they say it, they get news. If I say it, it's not getting news. If George Clooney says it, it's getting news. And it's all over the place. But, we go back to the debate, and that's where this all started, because prior to that debate, nobody was suggesting that Joe Biden needs to move aside. Not one person was suggesting that. The debate happened. It was a disaster. Although I am going to say this again, because I said this in our last show, I watched the debate for a second time. Still was not pretty. But Joe Biden gathered himself a little bit more, and he answered the questions. Didn't answer them all perfectly. He didn't answer them all in the way we want him to answer them, but he answered the questions with substance. Donald Trump answered zero questions with zero substance, and all lies. I mean, literally everything that came out of his mouth was a lie. But you know what? We got so distracted by Joe Biden. Not that we weren't paying attention to Donald Trump, because in our heads, we're like, he's lying, he's lying, he's lying. This sucks. But we're so distracted by Joe Biden's performance that it kind of maybe took away from the overall result of that debate. And the overall result of the debate, and I said this on the last show, if you just saw the transcripts of this debate, Joe Biden won the debate. Now, it's not like he should be throwing his hands in the air and throwing the mic down and saying, I dominated that debate. He put on a very bad debate performance. But that tells you just how terrible Donald Trump's performance was. If his performance was that bad, where Joe Biden still, literally, if you listen to the words, he won the debate. So this idea that I keep hearing that Joe Biden won Donald Trump won the debate, why? Because he just sounded more clear with his lies and he was louder. That's why he won. This is not a beauty contest. They're not awarding Mr. and Mrs. Congeniality. The debates are supposed to be substantive, but they're not anymore. It's a big show. And whoever wins the show is the one who wins the debate. Whoever sounds louder and cooler is the one, and who makes the zingers seems to be the ones that at the end people say that person won the debate, which is ridiculous. But anyway, from that point on, I don't know. I'm very confused, and correct me if I'm wrong. People are like, well, Joe Biden needs to get out there. He needs to get out there. Literally, since the debate has ended, I've seen Joe Biden all over the place. The very next day, had a great rally in North Carolina. He was on an interview with George Stephanopoulos. He did his press conference last night. He's doing an interview on Monday. He's in Michigan today. I mean, I don't know what people are talking about, but I do hear some of the criticisms that he still maybe isn't messaging the way that he should. And, you know, if you do have that criticism, I certainly wouldn't fault you for that, because I do need to hear him say Trump's Project 2025 way more than he's saying. I need him to start talking more about his accomplishments, which he's trying to do a little bit more. It's a little bit more difficult when you're in an interview and all you're doing is being asked about your cognitive issues. You know, we know he's been old for a long time, right? So before this debate, nobody was questioning whether or not he should stay in the race. They were questioning his age. They were questioning his ability to be able to speak properly, the whole time. But nobody was saying he needs to drop out of this debate. And obviously people were still scared whether or not he can win or he couldn't win, but not to this degree. We've gotten to a degree now where it has just gotten over the top because of this one debate. Again, if he did that during the debate the entire time, then I would have been, boy, this is pretty bad. But again, if you watch it again, he didn't do it the entire time. He screwed up 2-3 times. His facial expressions weren't great when he was looking over at Donald Trump. But that shouldn't be a game ender for everybody. And the panic that is setting in now is more concerning to me, that it is hurting Joe Biden more than it would be if he dropped out of the race. And I think at some point we got to start looking at this and saying, maybe we just need to start touting Joe Biden's accomplishments, which there are plenty. I mean, plenty of accomplishments. In fact, a few more good things just came out recently that I'm going to bring up here in a minute, but plenty of things to run on for Joe Biden. He is, people say he's changed. In 4 years, he's not the same guy. You're right. He has 4 years of presidential experience now. And you heard that in the press conference yesterday. In the press conference, I had people text me saying, this is boring. I was like, good. It's supposed to be boring. This presidential press conference about foreign policy is supposed to be boring, not exciting. I'm not watching it to hear him mess up his words, or I'm not watching it to hear him lie and scream and act like a fool. like Donald Trump would. Could you imagine Donald Trump trying to answer those foreign policy questions? Seriously, imagine him trying to answer those questions. He'd be a fool. He would just be saying dumb shit the entire time, like it's going to be really great and they really love us and, you know, they respect Trump more than anybody, with zero substantive, you know what I'm saying? Answers, substantive answers. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, so the press conference was supposed to be boring. Yes, did he mess up and he called Donald Trump, or did he call Vice President Harris Vice President Trump? He did. Earlier in the day, he referred to President Zelensky as President Putin. He immediately changed or corrected his mistake. We're nitpicking, and see, this is going to be the problem now, is that every single word that comes out of Joe Biden's mouth, if he messes up one word, they're going to go, he can't be president. That's it. He's cognitively declined. He called Putin or Zelensky Putin. See, I'm even messing it up. I mean, when you're dealing with all these names, it's not difficult to mess up these names. And talking about messing up names, we have played numerous clips of Donald Trump calling Nikki Haley Nancy Pelosi. We heard, or the other way around. See, again, he calls Biden Obama. If the standards aren't the same for both guys, then we're in really, really, really big trouble. And that's what really irritates me more about the media right now. What irritates me so much about the media is that for years and years and years, it's basically, I don't know, 20, I would say 24/7, but let's say 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. Donald Trump news, Donald Trump news, Donald Trump news. You know why? Goes back to what I was saying earlier. Joe Biden's boring, right? He's just a guy who is working and doing what he's supposed to do. He's working with world leaders. He's taking care of our economy. This is boring. This doesn't get clicks for them. This doesn't get them audience members to watch this. But what does? The clown show over on the right is what gets them audience members. So that's what they focus on all the time. Joe Biden now has a bad debate. Now they're going to cover Joe Biden 20 hours a day, 7 days a week, but it's all going to be negative about his cognitive decline. And they know this is soap opera drama that they fucking love. They are in love with this soap opera drama. Will he stay? Will he go? The Democrats are secretly plotting against him, but these Democrats are saying, no, he's staying. And this is just what makes our media so sickening right now. So sickening, because this is not for the good of the country. This is good for their pocketbooks. This is good for their advertisers. And, you know, at some point you would think that somebody would step back and go, guys, can we maybe do more for the country, which news used to do? Because that's what news used to be in this country. News used to be what they would call a loss leader, which means it would start before the shows that were more popular that made money, and the news was just a lead into it, and it would actually lose money. But now it's become $1 billion industry. And why has it become $1 billion industry? Is because they've turned it into Jerry Springer professional wrestling. Again, I'm not saying it's over the top news, but what I'm saying is the coverage is over the top. What they decide to cover is over the top. And it is detrimental to this country. And not to mention, you have one side of news that is a complete 100% propaganda arm for Donald Trump and MAGA. They are 100% behind that. The other side, if you want to call it that, the MSNBCs, the CNNs, they are 50% Trump, 50% Biden, probably more than 70% of Donald Trump's 50% is negative. And now it seems like most of Biden's news about him is negative. So you have 100% of the propaganda media, 100% negative against Biden, 100% for Trump, while the other side is kind of a mix and match. So Biden's getting way more negative news altogether than Trump does, which is weird. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So, um, but anyway, my opinion is this. It's becoming more and more clear to me, and I've been back and forth on it. Because I'm nervous too. I really do not want to see Donald Trump win this election. I mean, it's just going to be, and Lana and I talked about this on the show. The person it's going to affect least, or the demographic, is me, the white male in this country. And people in the comments, they'll get mad that, why are you bringing race in this? It's not about it is about race, but I understand that I'll be fine more than anybody, especially if you read everything that's in Project 2025. So my demographic will be fine, but that doesn't mean I, as a human being, am going to be fine, because many people, women, people of color, people in the LGBTQ community, people of different from people from different countries, these people will all be affected. And I have many of these people in my life. And outside of that, it's just, how about being a good human being and caring about other people, instead of this crazy plan that they want to implement, this far right church-like plan that they want to put in for everybody, making everybody learn the Bible in school. And I mean, that stuff to me is crazy. I mean, there are plenty of places that you could go and learn the Bible. In fact, I drive past probably 20 of them on my way to work, and all 20 of them pay $0 in taxes. So, I think there are plenty of places to find religion if you want to find it. But that's the beauty of this country. The beauty of this country is, if you don't want to find religion, you don't have to find religion. If it's, pretty much that simple. But my opinion is that Joe Biden has been a phenomenal president. If he wasn't a very good president, first of all, I think it would be clear by now. I mean, absolutely clear that he would probably have to step out of the race. But number one, he's been a great president. Number two, I still don't buy into this idea that he doesn't know where he's at. He knows where he's at. He's definitely slower. He definitely isn't going to be as quick on his thought as he used to be. But this has been this way for quite some time. But that has not stopped him from doing all the great things that he has done as president. That, by the way, should be our number one thing. Outside, I mean, obviously Donald Trump is a huge threat, but we should be proud of what Joe Biden has done for this country. Because if Donald Trump never existed, this would, who would vote against Joe Biden? If Donald Trump never came along and got people to believe that the news that was being reported is completely fake. Now, that's different from what I'm saying. I'm saying the news is over the top as far as their reporting. I'm not saying it's fake news. I'm saying it is over the top in its reporting. And I say that they have split into different sides, where one side is just a complete propaganda arm for the other side, and it's just detrimental to the country. But if the idea of fake news didn't exist, and the idea of stolen elections and all this stuff, I mean, Republicans would have a very hard time beating Joe Biden, old school Republicans. But see, that's the problem, is that they had found the formula. They found the formula to get a lot of people who were not involved in the voting process. And that was a lot of uneducated, especially males, but uneducated people who needed a reason to go to the polls and vote. And part of the reason, actually a lot of the reason for them now to feel like they needed to get up, get off their couch and vote, is because this guy is going to come in and get rid of all those Mexicans that are coming into our country that has never bothered them once in their life. But for some reason, that resonates with them. Yeah, these Mexicans have got to go. And guess what else is going to happen? You know, uh, black people are going to be on their best behavior with Donald Trump, and the police officers are going to be out there and they're going to be beating up criminals left and right, and all the criminals will be gone because Donald Trump, and we're going to be hugging flags, and we're going to be saying Merry Christmas now instead of Happy Holidays, which I still don't understand that one because people said whatever. But that resonated with these people. So they feel like they needed something. They had something now that would allow them to get part of this process and make them feel now like they're somebody. But anyway, back to my point. I believe personally Joe Biden should stay in this race. And there are a couple of reasons. One is he is the incumbent. He is the guy people know already. And I believe that after a little while, Americans are funny, right? They kind of like the underdog. And Joe Biden is now starting to take on this underdog role. He's starting to take on the role of sort of like Rocky. You know, Rocky was an unknown. And then he took Apollo Creed to the end. And so not exactly like Rocky, but he is starting to feel like the underdog, like the one people are saying he cannot win. And I'm not sure that I still see that. Now, I know social media is not the tell-all of everything. That I get, I know for a fact. But I will say that I do see a lot more people on social media defending Joe Biden than against Joe Biden. And there's a large community of people on social media. So, you know, it's not exactly the metric to go by to make your final decision. But what I will also say too is I've said before, we've said it on the show many times, I'm not a big fan of the polls. I'm not, I don't live and die by polls, but I have said on numerous occasions that when they do come out, they are noteworthy, and you do have to sort of see the trends of the polls, right? And I think the trends tell us something that could give us some hints as to whether or not somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, or in this case, should Joe Biden stay in the race? Well, since the debate, what you would expect, especially now, I think the last 2 weeks may have been two of the worst weeks any candidate has ever had in the news media and on social media that any candidate has had in a very, very long time. Let's just say that. And you would expect that Donald Trump would have opened 10, 12-point leads because of that. Well, there was a few days where he did open a couple of leads that got concerning. 538 is a poll that everybody likes to go to. And they kind of give you an idea if they had 100 times where you voted, how many times would Biden win? How many times would Trump win? And it was kind of going back and forth a little bit. Joe Biden would have a 53 to 49 lead or 52 to 49, you know, whatever. And Trump would have a little bit of a lead. But a few days after the debate, Trump opened a huge lead. He went up by like 7 or 8 points in that. And that was really starting to get concerning. But something very interesting has happened over the last week, and today in particular. If you look here, the 538 poll came out today. And let me go back up here and go up. I'm sorry, I got to put this back up. Sorry, can we see that here? Okay. All right, sorry guys. So if you see here, Biden wins 50 times, Trump wins 49 times out of the 100. So Joe Biden has now taken the lead back over Donald Trump in the 538 poll, which, you know, you would think of a guy that should quit and needs to be out of the running. Then, you know, you would think, I don't know. Should we should we get rid of this guy because it looks like he's making a comeback? That's not the only one. An ABC poll came out the other day and showed that Trump and Harris were tied. So that actually is something interesting as well. And in that same poll, it showed that Kamala Harris, interestingly enough, was beating Trump by 2 points. And the Marist poll that came out yesterday, they had Biden winning by 2. They had Kamala Harris winning by 2. They also had Gavin Newsom winning by 2. So that tells me a couple of things. In fact, it tells me one main thing. And the one main thing is that I do believe people are really starting to grasp on to this Project 2025. They're grasping on when they add Project 2025 to the Roe decision, when they add that to the Supreme Court decision, which basically says president can do whatever he wants. Now, I understand. I don't need in the comments that that's not what they said, that they said they could do whatever he wants. But it gives Donald Trump enough leeway to do some very dangerous things on that ruling. And I think when you add all that up, that you are seeing a lot of people that are like, I really do not give a damn who's running out of all those people. I am voting for whoever the Democratic nominee is. And at this point right now, I honestly think Joe Biden should be the guy. I think you need to leave him in, let him do his thing, let Kamala Harris get out there more and more and more, and let people get to know her a little bit better, because a lot of people are going to be voting on, hey, I know I'm voting for Joe Biden, but I'm probably also voting for Kamala Harris as well, because who knows if Joe can make it another 4 years. In fact, I suspect that a lot of people do believe that if Joe wins the election, that he won't last all 4 years. But whether he does or whether he doesn't, this is about voting for policy of each candidate. It's not about voting for a man here, right? And so if this were, it's pretty simple, in the two, when you kind of add up the differences between voting for somebody who wants to implement all these crazy things and voting for somebody that wants to basically save women's rights, save the rights of all human beings, really, when it comes down to it. A guy who doesn't think he's going to be king, that's a big deal. And I think a lot of people are starting to think about that. Project 2025 is starting to get a ton of attention. In fact, I just read today that Project 2025 is getting more Google searches than Taylor Swift. And that's a pretty big deal. And the National Football League, which is starting, not too far from now. And the NFL is year round. Google is always a top search. But, as we're getting closer to football season, Project 2025 is out Googling Taylor Swift and the NFL. And, that's interesting. And that again tells me people are paying attention. And generally in July, they're not paying attention as much as they do in September and October. And I think as we get closer and closer and closer to the election, that people are going to have it in their minds more and more and more that Joe Biden is the way to go. And if it's not Joe Biden, it's going to be Kamala Harris, and she's the way to go. So I think at some point that's going to play out. So anyway, the should they stay or should they go? I want to play a clip real quick because he was in Michigan tonight, but before he took the stage, this was the vibe at his rally.
Good evening, Detroit, and good evening, Michigan. Don't you quit.
A nice moment there for the president where everybody is chanting, don't you quit, don't you quit. And, I'll say people love Joe Biden. Even if you don't want him to be your nominee, they do love him again, outside of the crazy nutty MAGA people that you might run into. But, people do love the guy, and they want him to succeed. And, the only issue that we're going to have from this point on is, is Joe going to have a major stumble? But I do believe at this point, after the debate, we are seeing that does not matter as much. It really doesn't. There was another poll that came out overwhelmingly. They asked, would you rather have somebody with character or lies a lot? And, obviously, character is going to win that. And that's what Joe's got. He's got character. And I think a lot of people are going to just say, you know what? He screws up some names here and there. Who really gives a shit? So does Donald Trump. So if they're both the same on that level, now I have to dumb it down to, okay, both guys screw up names. So what is he wanting to implement as a policy, and what is he going to implement as a policy? Oh, that versus that. This is a very, very simple choice. And I think if people who wanted to vote for Donald Trump knew exactly what, and again, this is what drives me nuts, is the MAGA people, this whole Project 2025 is something that if they read it in turn or outwardly, they'd be like, this is awesome. We love this. We love this. Now Donald Trump is trying to deflect from it because he knows it's not popular. And now they're trying to say Donald Trump never said that this was his anyway. And so they're confused as to whether or not they want it, they don't want it. It's just a big mess. But for somebody that says that he thinks he should say, Chris Matthews was on MSNBC the other night. I saw this clip, and he laid it out pretty good. And this is his case for Joe Biden.
Great unknown for Democrats. Many Democrats appear willing to take that risk and see what's behind the door. What do you think?
Well, I think we have to look at all the facts. And one of the facts is Joe Biden. He's a fact. This guy has earned his way to this position in life, United States president. He got here the long way. In 1972, he ran against Caleb Boggs, a three-term congressman, a two-term governor, a two-term U.S. senator, and he beat him. He beat him well. And he rode around in a car the next day and was celebrated for having pulled that upset because he put out no television in Wilmington or Delaware. He put out literature the weekend before delivered by volunteers, which was a brilliant piece of literature. John Martilla did it. He is a politician who's been good at it. He's been reelected every time since then in Delaware with pretty healthy majorities. In life, he lost his wife and he lost his daughter, and he found Jill. Now, who's he going to listen to, Jill or George Clooney? I'm telling you, it's personal. He's had the elite, and it's so true about the elite. He is absolutely right about the elite. Look at President Obama. He served for 8 years loyally, and yet Obama backed Hillary Clinton for president and didn't back him. But I hear he never even invited him upstairs. He had a good reason to be resentful, but he isn't. He puts up with it with the elite. But right now, he's got the poor people. He's got minorities. He's got Hispanics. He's going to put out the labor. He's going to hold that base of the Democratic Party, which he will need in November. And I'm telling you, people are going to end up rooting for him in October because he will have a comeback. And in this elite-fashioned attack on him, they're going to pay for it. But in the end, they're going to end up voting for him. So I think Biden will be the little guy. He'll be the Democrat in this race, the true Democrat. And he's going to get people to turn for him in October. It's going to be stunning. He is not quitting. He is not.
I'll tell you, I agree with him there. And could you imagine? I mean, it's going to be possibly one of the great comeback stories and feel-good stories in American history. If he comes back and he wins this election, and I say comeback, it doesn't appear as if he is really down. And in fact, he's up in polls. So, and this is during the worst time of his campaign. He is getting bombed. People are talking behind his back. How do we get rid of him? How do we get rid of him? It feels like a funeral around here. But somehow, when they're asking the people who actually vote, they're still saying, yeah, I'm voting for Joe Biden. Yeah, there's plenty of people who are going to vote for Donald Trump. But I truly believe when it comes down, because I think people, when they're polled now, Some people, I don't think, first of all, I know nobody is being asked this question who was going to vote for Joe Biden and is now going to vote for Donald Trump. That's not happening. But you may have people who may be a little bit more skeptical about voting for Joe Biden. So they may either say Robert Kennedy, they may say other, they may say somebody else at this point. But when it comes down to actually voting, those polls mean nothing. And that is played out time and time and time again. I'm not saying all polls are wrong and you should ignore all the polls. I've said that a million times. We don't ignore polls. Polls are a barometer in a way, but they don't determine elections. The voters do. And right now, it appears the voters are still in this for Joe Biden. They are still excited. And again, that's just from my viewpoint. I could be wrong. There could be a whole nother side that I'm just not seeing. But right now, what I do see is people are still going to vote for Joe Biden. And if it's not Joe Biden, they're going to vote for whoever is in place of Joe Biden, more than likely Kamala Harris. So, I mean, hitting the panic button this early, this almost, and I get it. I get why maybe people would, because they are really nervous. This is not a game, even though I was about to compare it away to a game. I'm comparing this situation. Obviously, I'm not comparing this whole situation or the election, ultimate election, to a game. But this particular situation kind of feels like being at a basketball game and the team's at home, but they're down 15 to a really bad team, but it's only the third quarter. And these people want to get up and leave and go, this game's over. Well, if you're familiar with basketball, a 15-point lead can be erased like that. And if you look at these polls, a big lead already erased like that within a week. And Biden's still getting bad press. So imagine when people start to realize that Biden's going to continue to be the nominee, and that people realize that, yeah, he's going to screw up his words. And are we going to make a big deal every time he might misspeak here and there? Maybe that's getting a little boring for the viewers. It's exciting now because that's what's on the top of people's minds. But at some point, people are going to start looking at this like, okay, I think you're starting to pick on him a little bit now, and you're giving these MAGA idiots the satisfaction that they need so badly in their sad, pathetic lives that, they're going to stop for a second and go, all right, maybe we need to get on board, because I'll tell you another entity that is going to be hurt badly by Project 2025, and that's the media themselves. So quite frankly, I don't know what the fuck they're doing. I don't understand. Well, I do, I do understand based on what I said earlier. It's really about money at this point. It's about how do we get clicks? How do we get money? And maybe they'll right the ship at some point. And no, it's not for the media to root for a presidential candidate. It really should never have been. But at this point in time in our country's history and what could possibly happen, I think it is up to the media to inform properly the American people, and to, continue to let them know just how dangerous the ramifications are if Donald Trump wins. As I said, there's an opposite side of people saying that he should get out. George Clooney just wrote an op-ed in New York Times, said he loves Joe Biden. He was at the event a few weeks ago or a week ago, whatever it was, and said Joe just was not the same old Joe, and he actually saw it. He saw the decline of Joe Biden and that he really does need to step aside. Rob Reiner went on Twitter. Stephen King said it. There's a couple other people. I can't remember who says it. Maybe I've got cognitive decline, but there are a lot of people who are saying he should get out of the race. Stephen Colbert was on his show the other night. This is what he had to say.
The competing virtue here, there's another competing virtue, and that is self-sacrifice. And self-sacrifice takes a particular kind of courage. And that is a courage I believe Joe Biden is capable of. I believe he's a good enough man. He is a good enough president to put the needs of the country ahead of the needs of his ego. And however painful that might be, it is possible handing leadership to a younger generation is the right thing for the greater goodest. Or good as, either one.
A joke was referring to, he said, goodest, apparent, well, there was, his campaign said he didn't say that, but he clearly said goodest in the George Stephanopoulos interview, and that was being torn apart. Again, it's kind of the snarkiness and the jokes about Joe and his age and his so-called cognitive decline, which I do not feel is helping anybody. If you truly do care about the future of the country, maybe stop making the snarky jokes about Joe Biden, because he just could be the nominee, and it looks highly likely that he's going to be. So the snarky jokes and, some of the podcasters that I love Stephen Colbert. I love Pod Save America. I love a lot of these guys. I think they're great and they're fantastic. And I will continue to watch and listen. Jon Stewart is another one. Snarky joke after snarky joke the other night about Joe Biden. And I know they all say, well, we love him, but he could be the nominee. And this to me is not helping the case and helping the cause. Some things, and sometimes it's just, I don't know if this is the time to be joking about it, because if he is the nominee, and again, I'm not saying that these people are going to make or break whether or not somebody's going to vote for Joe Biden, but I just think that maybe we can cool it with the snarkiness. And also, too, when some of the people are being mentioned in this whole thing, now they're making it more about them rather than making it about the election. And there's this big fight within the Democratic Party now and the Democratic factions. And it's just, I don't know, it's not a good look. But that's why I think at the end of the day, this could turn into one of the greatest comeback stories of all time. One of the best underdog stories where basically Joe Biden is being left for dead, not just from the MAGA right, but from his own party, some people in his own party. And if and when he rises from the ashes from this whole thing, it is going to be one of the most satisfactory things that I think that I have ever seen in my lifetime, especially on the political spectrum. Now, will the George Clooney's and the Stephen Colbert's and Jon Stewart celebrate? Yes. Am I going to be that guy that goes, no, fuck you guys can't celebrate? No. I mean, they're eventually going to get back on board, and they are eventually going to be in Joe Biden's corner. I'm not a big, fuck off guy on stuff like that. I think their intentions are still well. I think they mean well, but I'm not somebody that says, no, you're not welcome back. And by the way, I or none of us are in any position to say, you are or you are not welcomed back. So, that's just my opinion on that. But, we talked about Joe Biden's accomplishments too. There's a couple of things that just came out a few days ago. The consumer price index fell 0.1% in June, and the measure that strips out energy and food costs rose by the same amount. The Labor Department said on Tuesday, the new data shows price hikes slowed sharply last month, offering relief to American consumers and bolstering the case for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates, which is something that we've been waiting for a long time. Now, the Federal Reserve, if they do in fact cut interest rates, it's not like they're going to cut the rates, 1.5 points, and we're going to start seeing 2-3% interest rates again. By the way, we will probably never see 2 to 3% interest rates ever again. In fact, Jerome Powell, the head of the Federal Reserve, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, said as much the other day that, really, if we ever do see anything like that, it's again because something terrible like a pandemic happened, not because Donald Trump was president. He, threw around his magic wand and made the rates low. That's not how it works, even though probably 99.8% of MAGAs will tell you that's how it does work. But it doesn't. But the fact that inflation is going down, there is a idea that they want to get it closer to that 2% benchmark. But there are things happening in the economy that don't normally happen when we see higher inflation. What we have seen during this inflationary period is unprecedented. And the way Joe Biden handled it is even more unprecedented. We had a inflation that got up to 9%, mostly because of COVID. And you had supply chain issues. You had the Ukraine war, which shut up gas prices. You have all kinds, the used car prices were through the roof. And the reason why they were through the roof is because when COVID hit, every new car dealership, they were out of new cars. They didn't have any cars to sell. So the only thing that they could sell were used cars. So when people would trade in used cars, another thing that has never happened, like literally has never happened, when you traded in a used car, you were wound up getting more money from the used car than what you paid for it, which does not happen. We all know what happens to vehicles when you drive them off the lot. They shoot way down in value, especially new cars, but the used cars shoot down in value too. But the fact that you were getting more money for your used car because there was no new inventory was unprecedented. So what does that mean? Now it means that the price for the used cars are way higher. And then as the new inventory started to come in, you have lots full of cars that have high used car prices. And now you're also paying new car prices. So the used car prices were higher than the new car prices. So that was hurting inflation as well. So now that things are starting to smooth out, used car prices are starting to go down. Gas prices are starting to go down. Your food, everything is starting to go down. So that 2%. So what else I was going to say is what is unprecedented is that when it gets to 9%, normally what you see is tons of job losses. That's not what we saw. Not only did we see job gains, we saw historic job gains, historic. And we also saw another thing that just came out in the news, that just 13% of workers in the United States are now earning less than $15 an hour. And 2 years ago, that number was 31.9%. So what is happening is that the wage earnings are outpacing inflation. So to get to that 2% number may not be as big of a deal as it used to, because we now have earnings are outpacing inflation. So with that happening, the Federal Reserve is now saying, okay, I think we could start lowering these rates now and start to get the housing market going back a little bit again. So I personally work in mortgages. So that's what I do every single day. And I've seen it hasn't been the easiest, but believe it or not, I've been pretty steady. So when things start to flatten back down, things are going to improve significantly. What I'm hoping to see is rates maybe getting back down into the lower fives. That would be nice to see. Maybe in the high to mid fours at some point. If we see that, probably not going to see it a couple of years from now. But I think just the feeling that people need to know that things are going down. The rates in particular are going down, because when they cut the interest rates, it's not only for houses. It's for vehicles as well. So you're going to see more people going out and buying cars again. You're going to see people going out and buying houses again, which is really going to help the economy. But if you listen to any economic expert, they would tell you that Donald Trump's economic plan would destroy every gain that the United States has made. They have had the best economic recovery of any other country since COVID. And Donald Trump will come in and he will wreck this whole thing. And we would go into a recession under his plan. Him raising tariffs on everybody. Raising tariffs on people just means higher prices for us. Our goal is to get these prices down. And that is what is happening. But the people who want to vote for Donald Trump, if you try to tell them that, they're going to say fake news, because they'd rather walk into Target Target and not see Pride Month stuff anymore than to pay lower prices. They'd rather a phony immigration attack on America. Yes, there are plenty of immigrants that are coming into the country, and it is sloppy in the way that it is coming in. They just wish there was a better program in order to get everybody documented, to get them in quicker, and get them in the right way. But we don't have that system. We haven't had that system really ever. So what the far right propaganda machine has done is they are taking that, I guess if you want to call it an opportunity, they're taking that opportunity to lie to people, to make them think that immigrants are coming in to rape and kill, when if you ask pretty much everybody you know in your life, ask them if they have been affected one time by the so-called immigrant invasion. And my guess is that you won't be able to find anybody. Sure, you're going to be able to throw an anecdote or two, but I could throw together a million different things on things that would counter that. So it does get frustrating, but there is great economic news. It will continue to happen as we continue to grow and get better and the economy starts to improve. So we don't need that destroyed either. So it's not just Roe, it's not just the SCOTUS ruling, and it's not just Project 2025. It's to continue to doing the good economic recovery that we have done. And yeah, you're going to have people going, I don't feel it. I get it. You may not feel it. I'll tell you where you're not going to feel it. Probably here in the state of Florida. And one of the reasons why is because we've got one of the highest insurance rates in the entire country. In fact, I think Florida's insurance is double the national average. Plus rent, that makes rents higher here. That makes HOAs higher here. The cost of living has gotten way higher in the state of Florida. So, you are going to hear people maybe in the state complain, but if you look around, the economy's doing pretty damn well. I mean, people are flying all over the place. They're going on vacations. They're doing all kinds of things. So, let's not just worry about what Donald Trump's going to do. Let's keep in mind what Joe Biden has done and what he will continue to do. Last thing is on Project 2025. They're trying to act like they don't know anything about it. They're trying to act like it is something that, or Donald Trump at least is trying to act like he doesn't know anything about it. But there was a clip of him talking basically about the Heritage Foundation and the plans that eventually turned into Project 2025, but this just was unearthed recently.
Is going to hell. The critical job of institutions such as Heritage is to lay the groundwork, and Heritage does such an incredible job at that. This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do and what your movement will do when the American people give us a colossal mandate to save America. And that's coming. That's coming.
Yeah. So he basically said Project 2025 is coming. That was something that was in the work. It's a 900-page document. So this is not something they thought of overnight. This was years that they've been planning this thing. And this document is in full view for people to read. Now, most people aren't going to go on and read 900 pages. That's why it is important that so many people are talking about it and Googling it and trying to look it up for themselves. You can find plenty of places where they condense the 900 pages and the biggest talking points of Project 2025. And they're enough to scare the shit out of you, or at least they should. So I would familiarize yourself more with that. I would also start getting into the mindset that Joe Biden is going to be the nominee. And, there should be absolutely nothing that should keep you from voting for him. I know people have made this joke before, and I will say the same thing, that if Joe Biden is a vegetable, and he literally doesn't know where he's at, I would still vote for him over Donald Trump because of the policies of the administration. It's not, this one's not difficult, folks. It's easy. So, but anyway, put in the comments. Let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you think he should stay, if he should go. Did I say anything wrong? Is there anything you agree with or disagree with? And, I'd be interested to hear your comments. I know I'll probably get a lot of comments from MAGA people who just like to say the same dumb shit you hear over and over and over again about the immigrants, and who knows, whatever. It doesn't matter, but please leave it in the comments. Also, please like and subscribe to this show. You can also join me with Lana again on Tuesday night, where we will have our 1-year anniversary show. So you could join us Tuesday. That is the 17th, I believe. So come back and see us. Again, please like, share, and subscribe to this show. And thank you for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.